Finally, we are getting to reporting a single sample t-test in APA style format. We did this a little bit when we covered z-tests, and I said that when we report results of a hypothesis test in APA style format, there's a very specific way that we do that we report things. And so for this assignment, you're going to get a little more practice doing that. Right? So for the assignment, what you're going to do is you are going to download a file that has some data that you need to put into Jamovi. You need to do the analyses, right? Do the single sample t-test following the instructions that we just used. And then you are going to write up the results of that single sample t-test in APA style, right? So what I'm going to do in this video is just going to give you an example. I'll walk you through how to do a APA style report of a single sample t-test. And we are going to use these instructions and the output that we already have generated from the self-esteem example. Right, so I'm going to just grab this and throw it over here in a blank document. And that's what you'll do for the assignment, right? Once you do your output, you are going to copy it and paste it into your assignment document. Now let's write up the results. So for the assignment, you really want to make sure that you follow each of these steps, because essentially I give a mark for each of these points, sometimes multiple marks, but really follow these steps. Okay. So what is my example here? A brief introduction to the research question. So let's look at the research question here. Should have just brought that up and copied and pasted it. For this, I'm kind of just gonna okay, sorry, no, I just wanted to make sure I had the output and the description of the research question there for my reference. So for a brief introduction to the research question and the method, something like what's described in the research question. We read an article in the Globe and Mail that reported the average score is 29. You don't need to include that kind of information in an APA style write-up. Like, we predict Redeemer students' average self-esteem will be different. Okay, so that's kind of the introduction to the research question, right? And the method. Often these two get combined, which is what we're doing here. Right? We predict that Redeemer students' self-esteem will be different from Canadian university students. Okay? That's the intro to the research question and the method. Actually, part of also the method is we taking a random sample of 5 Redeemer students and have them complete the self-esteem scale. The N in the sample, we're going to make sure you report that, which we did as part of describing our method. That's the next part. Make sure that somewhere in your description of the research question or method, you report the population mean to which the sample mean is being compared, which we have done here, right? Because we have reported that the self-esteem score in the general population here is 29. All right, so with this paragraph here, all these components, we have covered all of these bullet points. Now we get into providing the results of the test. We're instructed to provide the mean and standard deviation for the sample. The sample of Redeemer students, mean self-esteem was 34. Standard deviation, we're finding that here, 3.81. And we say a single sample t-test was conducted to determine if the sample mean was significantly different than the population mean. This is 29. And then you say what your significance level is. 0.05. You could say alpha equals 0.052 and indicate that it was a two-tailed test. Okay, check on the first two here. And the next one is you're providing a description of the t-test results. So this is where you're reporting the technical details of the test. And all this means is you're reporting the t-test, the t-score for the sample mean, the degrees of freedom, and the p-value. and you must report them in this exact format. Okay, so first, you can just continue it on there. From there, you say T, and then in brackets, you put the degrees of freedom. Here, degrees of freedom is 4, and then equals, now you write your T statistic, right? So 2.94, and then you write your p-value. P-value equals 0.043. Okay, so this part here in the assignment is going to be worth 4 full marks. And if you do this in the correct format, if it's exactly the correct order, the correct format, then you'll get full marks. If you don't do it in the correct format, then you'll get no marks, okay? Because this is really important. This is the format that we do it in. And so, if you write something like, if you were to write, T equals 2.94, degrees of freedom equals 4, P equals whatever, that's wrong. You'll get no marks for that because that's not the correct format, okay? So make sure when you're writing up your results, you're doing it in this exact format. Okay, so that's the technical details. And now you indicate whether the results were significant using the information, which is the p-value being less than the significance level, right? So you say, therefore, the mean self-esteem of female students was significant higher than the population mean of 29. All right, check to number 2 there. Make a brief concluding statement about the research hypothesis, whether it was supported. The research hypothesis was supported. Finally, we get into the weeds a little bit with reporting some of these extra things. So you report the effect size. The effect size was large. And we know Cohen's D. So Cohen's D of 1.31. You say the assumption of normality was met. That's the next thing. Indicate if the assumption was met. All you need to do is say what the Shapiro-Wilks test p-value was. Shapiro-Wilks p equals 0.362. Okay, I want to pause here for a minute and just tell you something that students often make a mistake on and then get docked marks for the assignment, is confusing the normality of the Shapiro-Wilk p-value with the p-value for the single sample t-test. Okay, very different. When you are reporting the assumption, that's the only time that you look at the Shapiro-Wilks p-value. Okay, this is where the action mostly is, right? This first table here, where most of your information is. We just briefly look at this table when we're deciding whether or not the assumption has been met. Finally, we're going to comment on statistical power. For this assignment, you are going to use J-power, not the textbook charts, just a much better estimate. So we are going to, let's see if we can pull up Jamovi here, from what the estimated power was. The power for the study was, still have it here, power. All right, we tried to put this, it's 0.6. 6, or you could say it was 60%, and you say which is not adequate, right? We need adequate power is 80%, so 0.6 is not adequate. And then we would say we would need, found this in Jamovi as well by changing what we need n, where we found this before, we would calculate n, we would need 7 participants. We need 7 participants to have adequate power to find an effect size of at least t of 1.31. And that is that. I'm actually going to paste this into here for you. You can see that example right there. And like I said, for the assignment, you are going to, you're going to go to topic 5 assignment, and you are going to download a file that I will post there in a moment. And that has all the information that you need to complete this assignment. Essentially, like I said, you are going to be entering some data into Jamovi, conducting a single sample t-test on that data, and then writing up the results of that test in APA style, like we've just done.